Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new to the channel, welcome along. My name is Andy, better known on YouTube as The Uncommentator. I'm hoping you're not new to the channel though, and you've watched part 1 of this little 2-video miniseries where I am booking my Nightmare Wrestlemania. So in part 1, I booked night 1. So no prizes for guessing what I'm going to be doing in this video. It's part 2, so it's going to be booking night 2. Now, if you haven't watched video 1, first of all, congratulations on smashing the system, watching night 2 before night 1. But if you haven't watched video 1, I outlined the criteria that I used when compiling this card, but I'm going to recap that in this video anyway, so you won't have missed that. But what you will have missed from night 1, or video 1 I should say, is the matches that I booked for my Nightmare Wrestlemania night 1, and also my predictions for this year's WrestleMania, WrestleMania 41. I went through the entire card as it was at time of recording, which was Monday the 14th. I'm recording this on Wednesday the 16th, by the way, so still the cards is exactly the same as far as I'm aware. Randy Orton's not been given a match at time of me sitting here and speaking. Anyway, distracted myself. Yeah, what was it? That was it. Yeah, on night 1, the night 1 video, I went through the card for WrestleMania 41, as I've just said, and I gave my predictions and my wishes. So if anyone wants to go and see that, I mean, by the time you're watching this video, then WrestleMania will probably have already have happened, so you'll know whether I was right or wrong, or if I got my wishes or not. But anyway, that all takes place in video 1. So if you haven't watched that, then I would actually recommend not watching this video and watching that one first. But if you're going to stick around, let's get on with it. So this is going to be night 2 of my Nightmare WrestleMania. So let's just quickly, before we get into the actual card. Also, I just want to mention as well something I did mention in video 1. I don't have a script. I'm freestyling my way through this, so if I say or talk rubbish, then, you know, it's live, pal, so we're just going to go with it. But yeah, as I said, I'm going to go through the rules that I outlined in video 1. This is how this is the parameters I set for myself as to compiling this card. So it's going to be 14 matches. Night 1 had 7 matches, so night 2 also has 7 matches, which are going to be I'm going to be revealing in the coming minutes. A wrestler can only be used once, so for example, I can't use a match that's got Cody Rhodes and Stardust in because it's the same person. So that's what I mean by wrestler. I mean same human being. I can't use them more than once. A WrestleMania can only be used once, so I can only have one match from each. I can only have one match maximum for a WrestleMania, and I'm including 2 night WrestleManias. I'm treating them as one. So I can't have a match from WrestleMania 38 night 1 and night 2, for argument's sake. And last but not least, I've got to have 4 mandatory championship matches. And those matches are a world title of some description, so that could be a WWF, WWE, Undisputed, World Heavyweight, whatever you want to call it, Universal, any sort of world championship. I've got to have a tag team championship match, so that could be a WWF, a World, a Raw, SmackDown tag team championship match. I've got to have a women's championship match, so that could be the old women's championship back in the Attitude Era. It could be the SmackDown women's, Raw women's, the Divas belt, whatever women's championship you want to describe. And last but not least, I must have an Intercontinental Championship match. Also, I did set myself a couple of extra parameters. I tried to avoid matches that were kind of forgettable and pretty short, unless they were egregiously atrocious. I've kind of, like I said, avoided matches that were just short, or matches that were made on the fly. I've excluded them as well. So McAfee versus Vince McMahon, for example, even though that was egregiously terrible, because it was booked on the fly, I kind of just discounted that one. You know, the Hogan-Yokozuna match from WrestleMania 9, things like that. That's why they're in the thumbnail, because I haven't featured them. So, yeah. So without any further ado, let's get on with it, and let's reveal the opening match for my Nightmare WrestleMania Night 2. And I believe this was, if my memory serves me correctly, this was the opening match of the WrestleMania that it featured on, or the night 2 of the WrestleMania. So a spoiler, it's a bit of a modern match. And it's WrestleMania 37. It's Randy Orton versus The Fiend. Now, the aforementioned rule that I set for myself, saying I can only use a wrestler once, that was bad news. That was good news for Randy Orton, but bad news for me, because there's 4 Randy Orton matches that I actually wanted to feature on this card, or certainly at least 3. But I've gone for this one, and the reason why I've gone for this one is, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure. I think, thinking back, this was worse than the Orton Wyatt match, or well, it wasn't called The Fiend at the time, but Orton Bray Wyatt match from WrestleMania 33. It was shorter, and I just think it under-delivered a bit more. That's the only real thing I can see. I'm not going to mention the other autumn matches because I'm going to talk about some matches that didn't make the cut that I wanted to feature at the end of the video. But for now, let's just focus on this one. So Randy Orton versus The Fiend, WrestleMania 37. So the match started, well, before the match started, Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, whatever, the burnt Fiend, walked down a tunnel. He suddenly metamorphosized into good Fiend again. You know, his burnt mask had disappeared. And he looked normal again. He then emerged out of, I thought this was great actually, he emerged out of a Jack in the Box, the box-like structure. You know, Alexa turned the handle and he rose up. I thought, oh, this was great so far. But then the bell, of course, had to ring. And after a little flurry of offense from Bray, they ended up on the outside and Orton dropped him on the announce table. And from that point onwards, Orton very slowly, and to what could generously be described as crickets, just kind of beat the Fiend up, went through the motions, went through his steps, vintage Orton and all that stuff. It wasn't, I mean, I'm not really, I try not to let the live crowd's reaction impact my opinion on a match. And I think I'm quite good at doing that. I'm quite good at judging how a match is and ignoring the crowd, because sometimes, don't get me wrong, a good crowd can make a match better, but a crowd could also make a match worse when they try and make it about themselves. For example, Ziggler versus Rollins for the IC title when in the main event, the Iron Man match. But anyway, that's by the by. So yeah, the crowd were in silence, which I don't think helped, to be honest with you. Given how long this feud had been going on for and how personal it had got, I really don't think that helped. But the action wasn't very good, and I know it's sacrilege to say this about Bray Wyatt, especially when been, passed away early, but a lot of the stuff he was involved in wasn't very good. But he seems to be immune to criticism for somehow. It's almost like everyone else's fault apart from his. But yeah, don't get me wrong. And I love the Fiend. I've got a Fiend. I've not got that ridiculous belt that we made that was about $7,000 or whatever it was. But I do have a Fiend sort of framed picture. So I'm not anti Bray Wyatt. And some of the stuff was really good. The Fiend at the first was awesome. The Firefly Funhouse stuff was great. But anyway, this match wasn't, unfortunately. And then just when Wyatt, Fiend, whatever, was making his comeback, of course, Alexa appeared from the box-like structure with goo coming down her face. That distracted the Fiend. And then one RKO was enough to pin him. This was after he kicked out of 12, was it, curb stomps and hammer shots and ladder shots and giant mallet shots in Hell in a Cell. I mean, Goldberg had kind of castrated him in Saudi Arabia by beating him with, let's be clear, a suplex rather than what was supposed to be a jackhammer. But it just was like all that, one RKO. This feud had been going on for months. He'd been set on fire. And then Alexa turns on him inexplicably. One RKO, as I've said, and that's it. And then you're done. And that was his last match as The Fiend. If that was his last match, Wyndham Rotunda's last match before he was released. Yeah, as I said, it was just underwhelming, wasn't it? But a suitably terrible way to start night 2 of this Nightmare WrestleMania. And we're going to move on in equally atrocious fashion to one of our mandatory championship matches. It's from WrestleMania 9. It's the Mega Maniacs, Hulk Hogan and Brutus Barber, the Barber Beefcake, or BT. I'll not say what a certain new podcaster calls it, but yeah, you get the idea. BTFBB. And they're taking on, that was right, wasn't it? Yeah, making sure I got my acronym out there. Anyway, they're taking on Money Incorporated. And this match went for about 20 minutes and felt like about 120 minutes. I mean, WrestleMania 9 generally considered one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. You may have been expecting another match from that card to have featured, but I've gone for this one because I was actually struggling for tag team title matches. When I went back through and looked at the tag team title matches from all WrestleMania, they've all been sort of at worst passable and generally very good. You know, you had obviously TLC, the TLC 2, the multi-person ladder match from the year before with the same 3 teams. You had the match that featured in my dream WrestleMania, which wasn't any of those, the tag team title match there. You had, obviously, Owens and Zayn beating the Usos. I mean, I could go on and on and on. There's been a lot of really good tag team matches. So it was either this one or the Bar versus Nicholas and Braun Strowman. They were the 2 matches that I was toying between. But I went for this one, primarily because of how long it was and how dull it was. So you had the old Mega Maniacs challenging Money Incorporated. So Hogan at this point was supposed to be moving down the card. Obviously, we all know what happened at the end of the show, but that didn't really bother me too much, to be fair, compared to most other people. I feel like the analysis of that, a lot of it's retrospective. But anyway, let's focus on the actual match he was scheduled for. He was advertised for, I should say, on this card. And the biggest problem with this match, apart from how long it was, is the fact that old Ed Leslie there was in the match for most of it. So most of the match was him getting beaten up and then doing a fiery babyface comeback. So we try to vanquish the two heels. Eventually, obviously, we get the Hogan hot tag, and he runs wild, brother. And then the referee ends up taking a bump. But despite that, the so-called babyfaces pin the heels, and then Jimmy Hart, and again, this is inexplicable, he takes his jacket off, turns it inside out, and on the inside of his jacket are black and white pinstripes. So clearly, they discussed before the match, well, I think the referee's going to get hit. So if that happens, you get in the ring, you turn your jacket inside out, and just because your jacket has got black and white striped lining, you're now an official referee. So if you count the pin, we're going to win the titles. In storyline, as Brian Alvarez likes to say, that is what happened. Because the ref goes down, he turns his jacket inside out, as I said, counts the 3, and then the Mega Maniacs genuinely think they're now the tag team champions. They genuinely celebrate and think Jimmy Hart's 3 count there makes them tag team champions. And in the end, another referee runs out. He, says, no, you're not champions, I'm sorry. And then these babyfaces, these Mega Maniac babyfaces, threaten to beat up a helpless referee who's explaining to them, oh, by the way, your manager counting the 3 doesn't mean you're now tag team champions. So, just a confusing mess, dreadful's not too strong a word, just a dreadful match and a confusing mess at the end, really. I mean, I don't know what more there is to say about it. It's just not good. Speaking of not good, match number 3 on this dreadful card. From WrestleMania 25, it's the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal. So you can see there, those were the supposed participants. Those were the people that were supposed to be involved. So you've got some great wrestlers. You've also got Maurice. No offense. No, I'm kidding. But you've got some. The Bellas went on to have great careers. Gail Kim's all-timer. Gail Kim's possibly my all-time favourite female superstar, actually. From Western wrestling, even more than Io, the lovely, brilliant Io. Anyway, move on. We've got Mickie James in there. Rosa Mendez, is she a legend? I don't know. Lay Cool. So, with all these great female performers, a celebration of women's wrestling. None of them get an entrance because Kid Rock sings, and then they all have to sort of dance and swoon over him, for want of a better word. And then, just when you think it can't get any worse, the match begins, and very, very quickly, the match, literally, like, the ring's full, you blink, and then there's just a few people left. So the Bellas are still in there, Beth Phoenix is still in there, and then you start to notice, as the ring empties, you start to notice, well, who's this one in the pink skirt? I've never seen that, diva, as they were called at the time before. And when that happens, you very, very quickly realise what's going to happen in this match. And it's one of those things where you know what's coming, you know it's a joke, you know what's coming, you know what the punchline is, but you still have to wait 15, whatever it is, minutes to get to it. So the ring very, very slowly empties. In the air quotes lady in the pink skirt throws out Beth Phoenix. It's at that point when you really do know what the punchline is here and you know what the joke is. And of course, it's Santino Marella dressed in drag. Ha 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 ha. And it takes about 15-20 minutes to get there. All that for that. So, completely underwhelming and completely terrible for me. Speaking of terrible, mind you, this whole card's terrible. That's kind of the point. But yeah, match number 4. From WrestleMania 20, it's Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg. Now, this was another match that... I had a match in my Night 1 video that I almost didn't want to include because it felt a bit cliche. And this was another one where I was in two minds whether to include it because it seemed a bit too obvious. And was it really that bad? But thinking about it, yeah, I think it was. I think it was that bad. I don't know if they did this. I've heard conflicting things that they were told to go out there and stall, and obviously the stalling at the beginning ruined the match. I mean, for most of the beginning of the match, well, I say ruined the match. There were lots of things that, I mean, this match was never going to work, basically, especially obviously after the, everybody knew that, or certainly the informed people knew that both of them were leaving after this match. So it was kind of destined to fail anyway, but then all the stalling at the beginning just ruined it. Now, I don't know, like I said, I've heard conflicting reports that they were told to go out and stall as much as they did, and also that because the crowd had turned on them and they just didn't care, they just wanted to go, they intentionally kind of, well, we're not gonna try then. We're just gonna stand around for ages. But yeah, the stalling went on and on and on and on, and then they just kind of both screamed at each other for a bit, and then eventually the crowd, to give themselves something to do, started chanting for Austin, and he tried not to laugh. Austin Corpse in Send for the Man. He tried not to laugh, but eventually, Austin was just stood there, kind of, saying, "Come on, get on with it, fight." And eventually they did fight, to be fair. And again, it wasn't great. They locked up so many times and then stopped locking up, screamed at each other a bit more, stalled a bit more. Like that. And then eventually they did get physical. There were a few power moves. Goldberg hit a spear. Signal for the jackhammer, and of course, Goldberg ended up winning the match. Then, I think what most people remember, at the end, Austin, he gave both of them a stunner. Lesnar completely checked out at this point. Totally fed up. Told the crowd what he thought of them. Again, I don't know if this was... I think this wasn't scripted, actually. I don't know. I've no idea, to be honest with you. I don't work backstage for WWE. Never have done and probably never will. But, yeah. Austin, the crowd... I suppose... Austin, to some extent, sent the fans home happy by giving Lesnar a parting stunner. Now, this next match, I know I'm whizzing through this review, but there's nothing to say about this match because not a lot happens in them, hence why they're bad. But we're going to move on to our next match number 5 already, whizzing through this, and I've cheated a little bit here. I'm almost breaking my own rules, but I don't think, in my mind, I can justify it. So, if you haven't watched my Dream Wrestlemania video that I did last year, then I picked somebody did, even though I said I don't use a wrestler, somebody did feature twice, but they weren't a competitor twice. So I felt like I could get away with it. And because I got away with it last year, I'm going to get away with it this year, in my mind, because Stone Cold Steve Austin, if this were a real card, Lesnar and Goldberg would walk backstage, but Austin would remain in the ring, because Austin needs to referee this next match. It's Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole from WrestleMania 27. So as I said, Austin would stay in the ring, he'd still be on refereeing duty. Now, in the first video, again, if you haven't watched it, I describe a different match to this one as the worst match in WrestleMania history. I think, could be wrong here, but I think most people would probably say this is the worst match in WrestleMania history. I think maybe from a objectively technical standpoint, this probably is, but the match that I put in night 1, which I'm not going to say what it is, I don't want to spoil it if anyone's not watched it, I think that was, I disliked that more than this, so that's why I think for me that's the worst match. But just from a purely in-ring standpoint, this is probably worse. Also, interesting about this, one other interesting thing about this is, on YouTube, you can find this match in full, including the promo before the match, because when this match starts, Cole cuts a promo, so including all this, and then the bit at the end, which we'll get to, I mean, you'll know what it is anyway, but we'll go through it anyway. The YouTube video is 25 minutes long, and if you include adverts, it's 55 minutes long. But just the actual, ignoring YouTube's adverts, it's 25 minutes long. So I wouldn't recommend sitting through it again, but you could do if you want to. I mean, I didn't actually watch it back. I just used it to sort of remind myself a few of when I was trying to sort of put together this little review of it. And yeah, it starts out with the promo. He goes in his coal mine. Jerry Lawler pulls his hand and obviously makes a funny, pulls his face into the side of the coal mine. He pulls a funny face, but then after that point, I don't know how long it is, but it feels like an eternity. You've got Jerry Lawler having his leg worked over by Michael Cole, and he's got to sell this ridiculously weak Michael Cole offense. So he's wrapping his leg around the bottom rope. He's doing these horrendous knee slam things into the mat. Like I said, Jerry Lawler, the veteran, the experienced wrestler, has got to sell for this guy. And this goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, this, to be fair to this match, it's not egregiously short like a lot of the other matches on that I've picked here. But yeah, you've got Lawler selling for this guy. He's then going to sell an ankle lock. Obviously, you've got Swagger on the outside. Look at him, Jake Hager. Then you've got Swagger on the outside interfering and one or two other bits. But for most of this match, it is Michael Cole on offense beating up Jerry Lawler. I mean, what this match should have been was just Lawler just squashing him and getting a nice moment. It wouldn't outstay its welcome. Cole gets his comeuppance, and then we all move on to the rest of this great WrestleMania. But yeah, eventually Lawler does make a comeback, goes into the middle rope, pulls the strap down, does his usual giant fist drop, and then we get what we think's the cathartic moment. He puts Michael Cole in the ankle lock. Michael Cole quickly taps out. Jerry Lawler wins, and we can all move on with our lives. Celebrates with Austin. Doesn't get a stunner this time like Lesnar and Goldberg did. And as I said, we can all move on with our lives. Or can we? Because the anonymous Raw general manager sends an email. Josh Matthews reads it out. And I quote, Michael Cole is declared the winner of the match. So, I mean, to be fair, that the ending didn't actually bother me that much, but I know it bothered a lot of other people, saying, well, just give Lawler his moment. And he deserves it, to be fair, but the ending didn't bother me that much. It was everything before then that bothered me. The slow, painful action and Lawler having to sell, like I said, this weak offense from a non-wrestler. I mean, this was as far as I'm aware, this was Michael Cole's wrestling debut, in-ring debut. And, yeah, he beats Jerry Lawler in a dreadful match. Well, at least you can see he's won at WrestleMania. Well, he does say it every year, doesn't he? He's 1-0 or whatever. He likes to remind people. But I don't like to remind people of this match. But unfortunately, for the purposes of this exercise, I have to do that. Right, on to our semi-main. Now, this match, this might be a controversial choice, because is this really a match? I think it is. And it's something else that completely outstayed its welcome. It's Rowdy Roddy Piper versus Goldust, the Hollywood Backlot Brawl from WrestleMania 12. Now, the reason why I say, is this really a match, is because this match, if you can call it a match, goes on all night. So the match starts, from memory, and I'm working from memory, the match starts before the sort of the main card action begins. The match starts, it starts outside, it's supposed to be Backlot Brawl, so Goldust pulls up in his gold limo. Piper pulls up in his white Hummer, whatever. Not quite the white Hummer, but you know what I mean. Piper's there. He whacks the when Goldust arrives, he whacks the window. I forgot the word for window. There. He whacks the window with his baseball bat, and then of course they have a brawl. He gets in the driver's seat of the car, runs Goldust over, kind of. They have a brawl outside. Eventually, Goldust sort of turns the tables. He runs Piper over, because why not? And then he drives off with Piper taking chase, I meant to say, in his, there we go, that's what I was saying, the white Hummer that's not the white Hummer. He ends up chasing after him. Then while that happens, then the in-ring matches of WrestleMania 12 start to take place. As Piper, as I said, drives off. And then throughout the show, we just keep cutting back to footage of Piper chasing Goldust. It's actually footage of the O.J. Simpson police chase, but we'll gloss over that. Eventually, they get back to the ring, and they do actually have a match, but at this point, I mean, I'm sick of it, to be honest with you. This part goes on forever as well. Goldust has actually beat him up a little bit, so we do actually get a little bit of work. He attacks him in the ring, he punches him, whatever, drags him to the ring post, and starts working over his knee. But eventually, we get to the point in the match that everybody remembers. Piper, for some inexplicable reason, starts tearing off Goldust's attire. He's wearing the women's lingerie thing underneath. I mean, we don't really need to. Do we need to see this? Do we want to see it? Not really. Yes, it was a different time. I get that, and it doesn't really. I get it, but whether it was a different time or not, I don't want to see a guy getting stripped out of his wrestling attire, especially when he's wearing that underneath. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyway, the connotations are there. We all know what they are. I'm not going to explain them. So, yeah, Piper rips that off. He kisses him on the lips, and then Marlena comes in, wraps a towel around Goldust, and they scurry off. And the match just kind of ends, and Piper celebrates. I mean, much like with most of these matches, what is there to say? I really don't know. So, let's just quickly move on to our final match. It's the main event. It's going to be the world title match. So we haven't had a world title match yet. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, so I like the final match of WrestleMania to be for the world title, unless it's something, I suppose, more... I remember it was Shawn Michaels' career on the line. I suppose you could argue, well, that's probably more significant than a world title, possibly. But I like the world title to go on last, and that is what's going to happen here. So based on the WrestleManias and the wrestlers that have featured up until this point, can you work out what this world title match is going to be? I'll give you 5 seconds to think about it. Nope, you've not got it, I'm afraid, because the world title match for my Nightmare WrestleMania, the main event of the worst WrestleMania of all time, it's WrestleMania 13. It's The Undertaker versus Psycho Sid. Now, I'm not sure if this choice is controversial or not, because obviously The Undertaker, a wrestling legend, a WrestleMania legend, and obviously Sid, now he's passed away. Obviously, what happens when wrestlers pass away is their career gets rewritten into fancy, hearts and flowers. So I don't know if this is a controversial... Nothing against Sid, by the way, but that's just what happens. So I don't know if this match is controversial or not, but this match just wasn't very good. It's just as simple as that. It just wasn't one of the worst world title matches in WrestleMania history. There are others that could have featured, which I will get onto after I've finished reviewing and explaining why I've picked this one. But I've gone for this one just because, like I said, it just wasn't very good. I mean, the best bit about this match was Sid's entrance. Somebody needs to have that entrance again with the sort of... their name in fireworks. I suppose The Rock set his name on fire or something, didn't he? But we need something like that again. But that was the highlight of the match, because they made their entrance. There was Shawn Michaels on commentary, so he was more of a... the camera seemed to focus on him more than the actual match. And then one thing that I think a lot of people forget is before the match started, Bret Hart comes out. Now, this is Bret Hart who's just had his great match with Steve Austin. He comes out, cuts a promo on Michaels, who's actually on commentary rather than the two guys in the ring. The two guys in the ring are just stood there thinking, we're supposed to be the main event here for the world title. It was almost like, and this, you might not get this reference if you're not British, but it was almost like, here's what you could have won sort of thing. So it could have been Bret Hart and Michaels. Instead, it's Sid and Undertaker. And even then, when the match starts, we still got this split screen of Michaels talking on commentary while the match is taking place. I mean, I can understand why, because the match isn't very good. It's slow. Neither of them are particularly agile at this point. I mean, The Undertaker, obviously go on to have a lot of classic matches, a lot of great matches. Even, even back then, he still had some great matches with Michaels, for example. The first Hell in a Cell match is an obvious one. But Sid, as great as Sid was as a sort of character and a personality and a larger-than-life entity, if you like, he just wasn't very good in the ring a lot of the time. So it was just slow, methodical, rest holds. I mean, there's a reason why when The Undertaker's career is reflected on, or his WrestleMania streak in particular, there's a reason why from this match you barely see anything. Because, like I keep saying, it just wasn't very good. Anyway, in the end, of course, Taker wins. He pins Sid. But another thing that seems to get missed off is that Bret Hart actually helps The Undertaker win. Bret Hart disappears. He comes back out and he hangs Sid up on the top rope, and then Taker gives him a tombstone, and that's the end of the match. So, like I said, there is a reason why this image tends to be the only one that you see from this match, and they just kind of gloss over the fact that the match wasn't very good, and he only won because Bret Hart helped him. But, that's not the legend of The Undertaker if we talk about that. But, for me, not a good match, and the main event of my Nightmare WrestleMania. Now, before we finish off, so that's the card done, so that's night 2 done. Obviously, that's the 14th match. I just want to finish off by, before I finish the video, I was going to say, I just want to finish off by just addressing a few matches that you may have expected to feature, and also some matches that I wanted to feature, and why they haven't. So, actually, let's just recap the card first. So this was night 2. As we said, we've got Randy Orton versus The Fiend. We've got the Megamaniacs versus Money Incorporated. We've got the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal. We've got Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg. Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler. Roddy Piper versus Goldust. And then main evented by The Undertaker versus Psycho Sid. So in terms of some matches that you may have expected to feature and why they didn't, I think there's 2 obvious world title matches. I'll explain why I didn't put them in. But from WrestleMania 32, Triple H versus Roman Reigns, and WrestleMania 34, Roman Reigns challenging Brock Lesnar. The reason why I didn't put these 2 matches in, this was at the height of the anti-Roman Reigns movement that seemed to be going on. But the reason why I didn't pick these matches, or either one of them, and this may be the dormant contrarian in me coming back to life again, but at the time when I watched these matches, I didn't think they were that bad compared to some of them, basically compared to the matches that have featured. I mean, don't get me wrong, they weren't classics, they weren't all-timers, but I genuinely didn't think they were that bad. Now, throughout this entire, when compiling this, I haven't gone back and watched any of these matches. I've basically gone off the fact, I've basically tried to go off, how did I feel when I first saw all these matches? And yeah, when I first saw these 2 matches, I genuinely didn't think they were that bad. So that's basically why they're not in. It's as simple as that. Now, a few matches that I did want to feature, and I'll explain what they are and why they didn't. WrestleMania 2, the worst WrestleMania of all time, in my opinion, and it's not even close. So, as well as the match that did feature, which was in night 1, I'll not say what it was, we had these 2 matches that I wanted to feature. So there was Uncle Elmer versus Adrian Adonis. Now, I said I wanted to feature matches that had some build and weren't just kind of forgettable, unless they were egregiously terrible. Well, this one was egregiously atrocious. I mean, they were falling over. Adonis was just flying around the ring trying to make it look like something, but every time Elmer did something, he fell over. It was just not good. And then there was the work boxing match between Piper and Mr. T. I mean, what can you say about it? It's a work boxing match. It was never going to be good. Yeah, the reason why these didn't feature though is just purely because, well, I wanted to feature, well, I don't know really. I don't know why they didn't feature. I went for the IC. I was struggling for IC title matches, so I thought, well, let's go for that one, and then it frees up Piper to go in the Battle Brawl, because that just went on forever and was just also equally bad. But yeah, kind of wanted to mention these 2. But yeah, I thought the IC title match from that WrestleMania deserved to feature. I've spoilt it now, so if you haven't watched video 1, that's my IC title match. But yeah, also, just want to mention, I think I did touch on this earlier, a few other matches. WrestleMania 9, the Giant Gonzalez match. Again, the reason why I didn't put that one in is because I was struggling for a tag team title match. Tori versus Sable from WrestleMania 15. The reason why I didn't put that one in, I won't spoil it this time, the women's title match I did feature. I didn't put that one in just because it was really short. And it kind of was what it was for the time. So, yeah, through modern eyes, it's not very good, but at the time, you could almost get away with it. Randy Orton versus Triple H from WrestleMania 25. I really wanted to put this match in. I really wanted this to be the main event, but I was struggling. I was basically struggling to make a card up because a lot of these bad matches, they all have the same people in them. So to mix it up a bit, to allow, or I was struggling for WrestleManias because a lot of the bad matches are all on similar WrestleManias. So I didn't put that one in because I wanted to use the It meant I could use the Battle Royal basically, and it also meant I could use Orton versus The Fiend, like I did do. I mean, there was a few Orton matches, like I said earlier, that I wanted to feature. Orton versus The Fiend, Orton versus Bray Wyatt, and Orton versus Edge, the last man standing match. They could have all featured. And then Corbin versus Angle. I think that was just more disappointing because of what it wasn't. I think we all wanted it to be John Cena, but I think at the end of the day, that match being bad was on us as wrestling fans, because we wanted it to be John Cena, even though it was never advertised or teased as being John Cena. It wasn't like it was booked as John Cena and then Corbin got substituted in. So I think that's on us, to be honest with you, as to not that it was a good match, because obviously it wasn't, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. So those were a few matches that I didn't feature. I mean, I could mention loads more. I'm not going to go through all of them. off the top of my head. Like I said, I avoided the impromptu matches like McAfee and Vince or Shane McMahon and Miz or whatever. So, yeah, like I said, there's loads more I could talk about, but I'm not going to because the video's already way longer than I planned it to be. But I will just finish off by mentioning this. So I actually worked out, well, according to Wikipedia, how long each match was. I added it up, and all the matches on night 1 were 59 minutes and 11 seconds of wrestling action, so that doesn't include entrances and things like that. And for night 2, it's 1 hour 37 minutes. And I think that's about right, because in modern WWE PLEs, we have 2 minutes of wrestling and 77 minutes of advertisements and entrances. So I think, and yet a 5-match card is still 5 hours long. So I think 59 minutes of wrestling, if you put it in a modern PLE structure, you could get a 7-hour card out of that, and likewise for night 2. So that's how much wrestling you would get if you watched these. If you went and watched all these matches, that's how much wrestling you would get. So I thought that was seems about right. Seems a reasonable amount of wrestling. And this is a reasonable length for this video. In fact, I need to... this video's gone way too long, but that is my Nightmare Wrestlemania. All done and dusted. So 2 nights, 14 matches, none of them any good. The worst Wrestlemania possible, in my opinion. So, if you enjoyed this video, then please like and share the video. You can also leave a comment on the video, should you choose to do that. While you're on YouTube, if you head on over to the channel, The Uncommentator, you can watch night 1 that I booked if you haven't watched it already. Also, please go and check out the video that I made last year where I did basically the same thing, only that time I should say, I was picking good WrestleMania matches. So I booked my dream WrestleMania using the same criteria. So please go and check that out if it sounds fun. While you're here on YouTube though, if you want to leave a comment on this video, please share me any matches that I've missed out. There will be some out there that I should have featured that I didn't. So if you want to tell me that Virgil versus the $1 Million Man should have featured, please go and do that, because it should have done really. But yeah, please go and do that. Also, if you want to leave me your cards using the same parameters, I'd love to read your own Nightmare WrestleManias you can come up with. That would be awesome as well. If you like wrestling though, I've got plenty of other content on the channel. I've got some WWE Crush Hour playthroughs, and I have one playthrough, and I have played through EWR, Extreme Warfare Revenge. Everyone knows what that is. If you don't like wrestling, then I'm not quite sure how you've made it this far, but if that is the case, then there's plenty of other content for you to enjoy, including Pokemon, including FIFA Street, if you like soccer, and lots of other stuff that are too vast to mention. But join me next time. We're going to be moving on to a totally different type of video. But for now, enjoy WrestleMania, and until we get to that point, for now from me, it is sayonara.